Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. This will be our 92nd episode today. Remember, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it is like oxygen on the gotta have it scale. Hi, I'm Tom Kuhn, CEO of Qnity, and we are here to help you make what's overwhelming, confusing, and complicated into a simpler path towards prosperity, whatever that means to you. Using a simple, visual, and actionable approach. And ultimately, our mission is to create a greater financial wellness for pro beauty, whether it's for students, employees, leaders, etc. So call to action, compensation study. We are in data submission right now. This is an industry-wide collaboration, and I'm asking for your participation and help. There's no charge, and in fact, you get a report to be part of this. But really, it's answering an essential question: what does a career in cosmetology look like from a wage and hours standpoint? So what is out there for people aspiring to join the industry and public perception is paltry type earnings. And much of this is reported based upon points of data references that either are way incomplete, biased, etc. And it's incumbent on us to do something about that, to get some data. This study, we're on phase 2 of the study. We urge all of you to be part of this. As Myra from PBA had said, this is the most accurate study she's ever seen in her entire time at PBA. So a lot of labor has gone into making this thing confidential, tight, relevant, and all of that. So we need you. Please use this QR code. What it will do is it'll take you to the website. And at that point, all you really need to do is just enter contact information. Once you do that, it'll trigger an agreement that will protect you for confidentiality. Then we build a data submission sheet for you. It's actually a quick and simple process, but the sooner you can do this, the better. And what you will also get out of it is a robust report with the first data, at least I've ever seen in my 30 years in the beauty industry, with all sorts of information that will help you not only attract more people in the industry, but will help you right now in your business with data information, plus education, et cetera, on how to use this data. So anyway, we need you to participate in this, all of you, please. If you're an employee-based salon and have W-2 employees, you're eligible for this, 20 locations or less. All right, remember to prosper, manage your ATM, your attention, time, and money. It's not lost on us today. You're spending your precious time with us today, so thank you very much. If you're listening to this recording by YouTube, thanks for joining us. We hope you get something out of it. For my light bulb moment this week, it actually came up, well, I've had a lot of light bulb moments this week or since we spoke last, but I guess the one I'm going to talk about is really came out of the conversation I had with Debbie when we were prepping for today. And it really has to do with restaurants. Now, usually when I've talked about restaurants, I've talked about menu anxiety. I've got menu anxiety. If I see a menu like this, like cheesecake, I just shut down. I can't, I'm just way overwhelmed. And but that's really not what we're going to talk about with restaurants today. What we're going to talk about is some light bulb moments that really occurred when Debbie and I were chatting in prep about certain parallels between the restaurant industry and the salon industry. Also, I think Debbie's got some great lessons as we'll call it the new kid on the block and her company, where she came in at a senior level with a mature leadership team. So some insights there, as well as work-life integration. We use the word work-life balance on the email, and my good friend Kevin Cameron from Pivot Point said, maybe it's more work-life integration. I like integration better, actually. So it's a great word choice and great word correction. Thank you, Kevin. So anyway, we will be welcoming Debbie into the Brain Trust today. My light bulb moment yesterday was really about your restaurant experience. Mm-hmm. And because that's still very fresh in your mind here, and you worked at a restaurant chain for what it was, 7 years, was it?
Yes.
It's just, there's some interesting parallels in this that I think provide some good lessons for all of us today. So let's kind of go through what you did. I mean, so you were area director, 6 locations, working directly with franchisees, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then you moved into the corporate side, and that's where you had North Carolina and Florida, and you essentially traveled to the different franchisee locations, and what did you do when you went there?
So I was the liaison between corporate and the franchise owners. So my job was to coach, guide, and support them in their journey with their businesses. I was also responsible for safety and sanitation, their regular corporate inspections, just ensuring they're running the business to our standards, and also guiding them in all the areas that they were challenged by, with sales, with hiring and recruitment, with retention, a lot of the things that we face in the beauty industry.
So these were independently owned franchise businesses that were, okay. So you then wouldn't have P&L responsibility, because that would have been the P&Ls of the private third party, which is a franchisee, correct?
Correct. When I started as an area director, I had the P&L responsibility working for a franchise owner, and then I transitioned to work for corporate. And at that point, no P&L responsibility, but I had franchise owners that their growth and their success was really my responsibility at that point.
So at Qnity, we look at a lens of a business under we refer to as 5 functions. And so which of these functions did you provide guidance on? Marketing, yes or no?
Yes.
Operations?
Yes.
Human capital?
Yes.
Education?
Yes.
Finance?
Yep.
Okay. So a pretty good parallel to then moving in to be a director of operations for how many locations does So Chic have?
We have 7.
You have 7. Okay.
Mhm.
So it seems like great qualifications for someone in your role, And I asked you a question yesterday, and that is, why'd you make the move? Why did you move from the restaurant industry to the salon industry?
Well, I do have previous salon industry experience. So I did manage multi-locations prior to my 7 years at this brand that I was working for. And the reality is, working in the restaurant industry right now is very challenging. And finding similar opportunities in the hiring and retention arena that we are seeing in the beauty industry, but it's so much more than that, because for restaurant managers, it is a daily struggle to see who's going to show up for work, how many holes are they personally going to have to fill themselves, what is the day going to look like, how are they going to get through their shifts. And from my standpoint, from where I was trying to coach and develop these businesses, you really get to a point where your hands are tied, because you go in with a plan to talk about a sales strategy or a detailed cleaning strategy to get their facility up to par. And they're just trying to survive the day. So it really puts you in a unique situation where they understand that all of these things are important, the growth and the cleanliness and all of that, but they also understand they're doing everything they can just to service their guests.
I started to get the impression, it started to become very clear with me yesterday that I'm used to hearing about a lot of pain points in the beauty industry, and am very empathetic, compassionate with all the complexity that goes into being a salon owner, salon, spa, school owner or manager. And then after listening to you yesterday, it's like, I want to choose my words carefully here, but it's almost like you haven't seen anything, because what you're saying is the restaurant industry is quantumly more damaged and quantumly more complicated and full of some very serious aggravation is the wrong word. I mean, but it doesn't sound pretty.
It's not, and you're losing managers in droves, which is the real challenge. At first it started with the hourly employees. There were no hourly employees. We all experienced that. And then when there's no hourly employees, it falls to the managers. So now you have managers who are used to having somebody work every position in their restaurant for a shift. Now they might have half the people there that they need. They still have to operate. They still have to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. At 2 to 10, I think it was many years ago, we always invited other industries to be part of 2 to 10. Like, we had a dental clinic, we had a hotel, we had all these different industries. We had a vet clinic, and but I found the restaurant the restaurant guest we had was fascinating, pointed out some things that are quite obvious, but you don't think of, so if you have a snow day or if you have a closed day, in the beauty industry, that just means the appointment gets pushed out. In the restaurant industry, it doesn't get pushed out. That is permanently lost revenue.
Exactly.
And secondly, you have perishable goods. So from a management of, there's the amount of complexity. I mean, I've always sort of appreciated what goes into running a successful restaurant. And what you said is yesterday says no one wants to work food now. So
That's true.
why does no one want to work food now?
There are not enough people in food. There have to be enough people in order for the operations to work well. So there is a struggle either in your hourly employees or in your management, one of the two, where you don't have enough people. And now there are pockets where you have some really great, strong cultures and they're well staffed and they don't experience the challenges, but those are significantly in the minority. I think anybody listening to this call can think back in the past 90 days if they've had a bad experience at a restaurant. I'm sure most people will be like, yeah, I waited a while for my food this one day a couple of weeks ago. That's more the norm now, whereas that's not what we were accustomed to even 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, the demand was, we want it now, and this is what we expect. And the expectation was that would happen from the customer standpoint. Now, from the customer standpoint, they're expected to be patient and have grace because we may or may not be able to provide you what you're expecting compared to what you're used to.
You made the comment there's actually a bigger labor pool in beauty right now than restaurants, in spite of the fact in beauty, they need to be licensed professionals. I mean, is that true?
I believe that's true.
Yeah.
I think that, finding service providers, of course, is challenging. Recruiting is challenging. But that service provider who's licensed, and if they're wanting to work in beauty, they only have so many options. They're going to find a salon to work in. Whereas the restaurant industry, I joke with people often and say the restaurant industry is where people go who don't know how to do anything else. But they become kind of a jack of all trades. If they're working in the restaurant industry, they can go to another industry. They can go check out hotels. They can go check out, any other industry that will take, entry-level people. And they're wanting to do it because the days in the restaurants are very hard right now. For the ones that are employed and are showing up to work, they're almost punished because they're having to do the work of 2 and 3 people because everyone's not there.
We later on we'll get to this, but we had a conversation about compensation in restaurants and overtime. We'll get to that in a moment. But so it's the call outs, the supply chain issues, customers that aren't sympathetic to employee challenges, and I think you used the word that grace is short-lived with restaurant clientele. I've always seen the restaurant industry as one of the closest parallels to salons and spas from a recruitment standpoint, more for support staff, whether it's managers, whether it's desk. Would you agree that is a pretty good place to recruit from?
I definitely agree. I myself was, working in a restaurant, and how I started my first job in the beauty industry was being a client for several years of a salon. That salon owner grew to another location and was needing a manager. And I thought, it's fun here. Everybody's happy. I'm always happy when I'm here. How hard can it be to run, right? So I learned quickly.
So maybe you've got some tips here today, whether it's an owner of a school or a salon, maybe it's a leader, whether they're leading one of the functions or they're the lead, location manager, whatever. What tips would you have to tap into that industry to look for candidates for some of those positions?
So you have a variety of options, and they range from getting involved with your local chamber of commerce. Restaurants are heavily involved with their local chambers. That is one avenue that they use to drive revenue, to get involved with the community, to find out, opportunities where they can get involved, where they can do community outreach. So the chambers of commerce always know who the most active and engaged players in the restaurant brands in their area are. That's definitely a place to start if you're looking for great people. And you can even take it to a whole other level and cold call restaurants, just like restaurant recruiters do. It's actually something that I did when we were looking for managers here in Atlanta. Restaurant recruiters do their job by simply picking up the phone and calling the restaurant around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, if it's a lunch and dinner spot, because you know you've got your manager in there prepping for the day. And they ask one question: are you happy?
I've got some mixed feelings about that one, to be honest with you, about actually calling the restaurant during working hours. But you know what? In the world of human capital, maybe I'm dating myself, I guess.
Hey, that's how the restaurant recruiters do their job.
Well, great insight. Now, we're going to come back to restaurants in a little bit here, okay? But unless you have any other tips for those that want to look to the restaurant industry to find talent, any other tips?
Just frequenting your favorite restaurants. You know, if you go to a regular spot and you have great service and the facility's in good condition and you always have a great experience, you should be interested in the leadership there.
Yeah, I certainly becoming a regular customer of a restaurant and having the same person, whether they're, serve as a host, whether they serve as a server, whatever the role is. I know when I was a multi-location leader, that is something I actively did, is I would, go to a few restaurants and I say, oh, and did some recruiting around that. It was very successful.
Another thing that I would coach my franchisees on is they would generate these business cards, not their actual business card, but just a card that says something along the lines of, I like your style. So that they would have these cards for those exact reasons: being in a restaurant, having a great experience. If you love your server, love the manager that came and checked in on you, hand them that card and say, hey, if you're ever looking for a new opportunity, let me know.
I got a final topic for you, and that has to do with compensation, restaurant compensation. And I was doing a little probing on that yesterday, and I found it interesting, and what you did is you educated me a little bit on types of restaurants. And you talk about the quick service restaurant, which is like McDonald's.
Mhm.
There's a fast casual. I love that term, by the way, fast casual, which is like a Panera, right?
Mhm.
Then you got a full service, which might be like an Outback Steakhouse.
Mhm.
And then you've got fine dining, which might be like a Ruth's Chris or something like that, right? Okay. And so a part of compensation really depends on that, but all of these businesses, have common positions, and, all of us are pretty familiar with it, positions, but so let's break it down. So line cooks, what you said, is between $16 to $17 an hour. Is that correct?
That is for your really great top-notch ones. If you are just entering into that particular brand, I mean, you might be starting out at $12, $13 an hour.
But they're making their money a different way today.
They are. Overtime.
Like lots of overtime.
Lots of overtime.
So, but still from a compensation standpoint, so let's say someone is $16, $17 an hour. Time and a half is maybe 24, 25, whatever per hour, right?
Mhm.
That's still way below what we show earnings, for example, in Pro Beauty from our compensation study. So,
Yes.
and here's the other thing is there's no tips. I mean, line cooks don't get any tips, right?
Nope.
So why would someone be a line cook when they could be in beauty is what I wonder. Maybe I
That's
have
the
a little bit of
$1 million
bias.
question, right?
Yeah. Apologize for my overt advocacy for the beauty industry, but and then looking at restaurant managers, what they do is unlike in the beauty industry, whereas if you don't have a service provider, you don't have the service because you need to be licensed to do it. In the restaurant industry, if you don't have someone there, then the manager needs to do it all.
Right. That's the challenge.
Debbie, I'm so excited that everybody's had a chance to get to know you a little bit today. Do you have any final words? I'm looking at the clock here and I ran away. I just loved our conversation. Any final thoughts?
I did too. No, just as I keep saying, human capital. And we all know it's important, from the icebreaker question earlier at the start of this, I saw the first thing that popped up was staffing. Human capital is really, really important right now.
Here is what is your first of maybe many $1 million light bulbs. So this will
Thank
be
you.
coming your way. Please give a virtual round of applause to Debbie today. Debbie, thank you. Give her a shout out in the chat. Send a little love. Also, a couple other things that's going on here. Money SBO, led by Candace Gliato. This is a workshop on the finance function for owners and managers. A key word there is if you have managers that you want to become more competent in the finance function of the business, or maybe you are a manager, or maybe you know someone, don't miss this because it takes the finance function of a small business, salon and spa, and makes financial management simple, visual, and actionable. All the best. You guys have a great week.